Tonight is the 28th of December. It's a Thursday. And I have a very special guest this evening. Brandy, who's just at my side and so much support. Appreciate you this evening. Thanks for your time, Brandy. She's going to be in the background, mostly producing. But I have my friend Linda with me, who is a fantastic foil, and she loves to give me grief. And I've been getting some feedback that no one argues with me. Linda, are you capable of that?
I'm here. And I'll give you any grief that you want.
I'll take as much as I can get. So, what the show is about tonight is about the Matrix, and I'm so pleased that Linda is here this evening because it's really hard to talk about this unless you've got some reference of really before the Matrix started. So I went down the path of first trying to make my friend in my a time of my friend's life, so she would do this with me, and that was a couple hours ago. So I went and did a little bit of a dive, and I thought if I'm going to think about how we get programmed, it's really advertising, right? I mean, am I off base there? Is there a better way to say that, Linda?
No, you can't. You're doing pretty good for a change.
That's a nice thing you've said to me in a minute. Thank you. So I thought, okay, let's talk about, because my first statement here is really how do we get in the Matrix? You know, we're born into it. It's television. But I thought, wait a minute, before television, they had to have a way to do this. So I came up with this little ditty right here, and I'll put all this stuff up on the locals. But I have a document in front of me. It was printed. You know, I like to go back to go forward. This was printed in 1854, and it is a handbook for advertisers and a guide to advertising containing hints and warnings to advertisers. It's the rules for advertising. It's the instructions for drawing advertisements, and it's a classified list of the London and provincial journals. So I'm thinking 1854. You know, London is really one of the epicenters of print, right? I've got London, I've got France, I've got Switzerland, I've got Moscow, and then and really Asia doesn't even come into the mix. There's too much of a language break in 1854. So it really, talking about the big 4 or 5, like we have media today, London's right in the middle of it. So this is and it's a guideline for list of magazines admitting advertising. So they're already fixing the market. So my hypothesis here is that in 1854, this, which was in the Effingham Wilson Royal Exchange printed, is an outline for advertisers and how much they should charge people. So they're already fixing the market. They're already fixing the market. And when I get down into the contents here, I talk about the number of journals that we've got just that are circulating now. The classified list of London journals with their character, circulation, etc. I've got journals circulating in the upper classes. I'm thinking, okay, that can't be that bad. And it breaks them down into dailies. It breaks them into advertising sets, how much each person should be charged. So my hypothesis and my point here is that the organization and the understanding of how the messages are presented to us, for especially ways that we look at how we spend our money. I'm in 1854 here. This is a classified list. This goes back way further than I thought it did. I mean, it's almost as old as I am.
What do you mean almost as old as you are?
Well, you know.
Last I looked.
Wizards age differently, you know.
Yeah, right.
So how to write an advertisement. This is from 1854. A great deal of skill and experience are required to write advertisements so that they may be at once explanatory of your object, attractive to the reader, and short. The following rules may serve to assist the advertiser in this important part of his labor. He's going to begin with an attractive heading. He's going to be as brief as possible. And he's going to, oh man, they don't talk about a call to action. All brand advertisers know about call to action. So Here's some examples. I mean, it's stunning the level of organization that they have and the amount of control. If I want to really look at the way that I'm going to get information in 1854, I'm probably going to go with that kid that's running down the street with that little short front bill hat that says "Read all about it." The subjects of the advertisers are pictures, religion, science, and servants. So they're picking caste level society engagement. There's a huge amount of information here. This is the critical interior classified list of market fixing about our messaging in 1854. Wow. I didn't think it went back this far. I thought it was just about maybe televisions and phones. Can you remember a time where you weren't getting pushed a product? I mean, what's that, Sears and Roebuck? That was the first real thing, right? Am I off base? Did I forget something, Linda?
I wasn't around then, so I don't think so.
Oh, that's right. You weren't old enough to read then.
No, I wasn't old enough to read that. Only you was.
So then there's this list here that is the number of articles that have gone out. The Morning Times from Printing House Square and Blackfire leads the list at 44,582. The London journals, with their circulation in 1853, is shown by the official stamp returns. So there's 44,582 editions in 1853 that went out of the Times. Looks like the Times runs the market. It's 10 times over everything else. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 or 9 papers here. And the big one gets 44,000 out. The next is 7,000, and then 4, then 3, then 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. They're evenly distributed. So they're squelching and they're shadow banning. The Morning Chronicle has 1,995. This is 1853. Were the days 1,900 days or years 1,900 days long then? This means they're putting out 3 articles a day. They're pushing the narrative about the weekly papers. It'll be convenient to advertisers to classify these under various divisions. So I'm taking significant amounts of information. The Illustrated Journal in London has 79,165 pieces in circulation in 1853 during the calendar year. So we are saturating the people very, very early. So let's jump forward 100 years. This is the next document. This is the notes. Back to 207. This is the notes from the hearing in Congress in 1948 that are in reference to the outlines for advertising alcohol. Because, we had prohibition, and in 33 to 38, there's this entire squelching of the control of all of us by control of alcohol. So at this point that we've had the hearings, yes, 67% of people, according to the poll earlier in this text, say we don't want this coming back. No more prohibition. Don't control us that way. So listen to this verbiage about the way that alcohol can be advertised, which you can't really, it's hard to advertise to this day. This is the legislation that we're dealing with, almost 100 years later again.
Oh, get them in a NASCAR road.
Say again?
Get them in one of those 57 Chevrolets.
Oh, we're going to talk about that in a second. I got a 1935 Chevrolet ad.
All right, let's hit it.
I know. Well, I knew that was your first car. So, I want to make sure that I got the right one. So this is Congress, our legislative body to this day, that corrupt, never mind. So this is who is this talking? I think this is Jackman, one of the senators that comes forward. No, this is from the first president and CEO of Gannett Advertising. He's testifying during this time. And I'll upload this as well to the library, as always. He says, there is an important distinction between the regulations governing the labeling and advertising of distilled spirits and wine and those which govern the labeling and advertising of malt beverages. The latter regulations apply only to the extent that the laws of the state under which malt beverages are shipped imposes similar requirements with respect to the labeling and advertising of malt beverages. More than half of the states have by statute or regulation adopted similar requirements. So he's already saying, hey, look, there's a guideline in place here. And at the time, a malt beverage was now if I want something that's fermented, I have to get kombucha or I have to get beer. I prefer beer. but I'll drink kombucha if I have to. A malt beverage was an additive and it was an aid. They were sold in a soda pop, where the soda jerk was. The soda jerk was the guy behind the counter that put the spurts in your soda and made it special. He could put opium in it too. That was at the apothecary. That was a grand day to live. so
you would know.
Well, memories are hard to kill with that favorable.
Mm-hmm.
These regulations are most comprehensive and minute. So he's already saying, hey, there's regs. Don't worry about it. We're not controlling you. Perhaps there's no merchandise sold to the American people that is so accurately, completely, and honestly and meticulously described on its label as a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of beer. Forbidden statements include those which disparage a competitor's products and those which are indecent, misleading, inconsistent with labeling, etc., etc. There's an etc. in the forbidden statements line. Doesn't that mean you can pretty much forbid anything?
They should have forbidden you.
Well, I slipped through the cracks. The ways of the wizard are not known by many.
I found that out.
So advertisements may not contain any statements representing that any distilled spirits have curative or therapeutic effects. If such a statement is untrue in any particular or tends to create a misleading impression, here are examples of some forbidden statements. Nary a haze in the morning, quote. That sounds like a hangover cure. Drink it tonight and feel like $1 million tomorrow. Or soothes frayed nerves at the end of the day. Nope, can't say any of that. That's forbidden. So, although dry organizations saying it.
I said that's forbidden. You can't say that.
You shall not pass. It is forbidden. I mean, if you drink it tonight, you're going to feel like $1 million tomorrow, $1 million headaches. If you drink too much, I don't know, at least finish the sentence, right? So, although dry organizations throughout the years have sponsored bills in Congress to increase federal control of liquor advertising or to prohibit it altogether in interstate commerce, Congress wisely has resisted all attempts to deny citizens the right to be informed of the claims made by manufacturers of various brands of alcohol, beverages for their products or through the ordinary media of advertising. The media of advertising. Congress has wisely resisted attempts to deny us. That means that they have the power, and they're doing it. Look, we're going to end up at Twitter here in about 20 minutes. There's a method to my madness. So, you know me, back to 1843, we can go and we can find the outlines for the secret society of advertisers. And then I can look in Congress in 1948 and show how they are making wise decisions about what we can consume from a media standpoint. I mean, am I being too strict here?
No, go ahead. You're doing fine.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, hopefully everyone will be able to hear this.
No.
This is an ad for a 1935 Chevrolet.
Not one or two, but all.
And this would have been shown before a movie. We didn't have television in the house. And what this ad does, and I'll upload this as well, is it goes through and it talks about the different types of vehicles. They start with a visual of a horse and buggy drawn four-wheeler. And then they go forward, they talk about safety in the vehicle.
A few years later, we get a thrill out of a knee action ride.
Potentially grooming his daughter. And then we see a safety
but it may
vehicle.
Be what you want if you're taking $1 million for a ride.
$1 million.
But not everybody has $1 million to ride. Economy is what they want.
Then there's a guy on a motorcycle with his girl.
But those
race cars.
Well,
here we go.
Speed isn't everything. Give this driver plenty of power.
Oh, that's my daddy's barn.
Who wants to take his Sunday
you can see it all
ride in a tank?
Oh, my Uncle Bob didn't go through that.
We want a balance of all these features in the car we drive. We want the best possible combination of comfort, safety, economy, speed, and power.
So if you notice right there, the cadence with which he delivered those words, these keywords are filtered all the way through this. There, I'll put this link up in locals. It'll be in the show notes. but they go through the part I want to point out here, and it's pretty entertaining to see all the vehicles that they put forward. They bring a bus, they have all these visual flashes, but at the very end, they go through. There's this picture here,
Complete comfort.
and then they
with
start
plenty
showing
of
their
speed.
vehicle, and they flash through the components
All
of
the
all the
power
previous
we'll ever
segments, all
need.
5 minutes.
The utmost in economy, and of course, the maximum of safety. We want not one or two, but all of these, and in the best possible combination. In other words, we want the balanced car.
So you'll notice when he is talking in certain parts of the ad, his cadence changes. It's a metered cadence with words that are of no more than 3 syllables, mostly 1 or 2, with a break in the middle. It's a programming technique. The advertisers have been programming us to do their bidding. Here's another piece of media from the same time. It's interesting that this is the collapse of the Silver Bridge, because silver had recently been kicked over backed into a fiat currency, and bridge and silver and collapse are all over the media as reporting this. So they talk about the collapse of silver that ends lives. This is their message through the middle of this.
It was a wonderful time to be a young American boy. The roaring 20s, they called it. And America had never been as prosperous. They just thought nothing but the best in the future, and a wonderful time for America. The St. Mary's Citizens Band marched at the opening of the Silver Bridge. And my father and mother went to that opening, and it was supposed to be a very gala event. But unfortunately, right in the middle of the parade, they had some rain, and everybody was running and trying to get out of the rain. That dampened the fervor of the thing and the historic impact of it.
Shortly after work commenced on the Silver Bridge, another bridge, almost identical in design, was constructed at St. Mary's.
So I'll put this link up, but my point is that this is a delivery of information. This would have been shown at about the same time as the previous commercial. The footage that this woman is narrating is the footage that was shown everybody else, and that was done in the movie theaters. So in our timeline, as we progress here, in the ways that we have been manipulated, given information that it was assumed to be true, it only takes 3 generations to make a truth. So I threw this in just because I love it. In Tartarian times, this would have been the movie theater. This would have been the place that you went. And it wouldn't have been Christ at the end of the hall necessarily. These were converted into churches. A healing center had a different type of media for you to engage with. It was an organ. And this one's actually smaller than it should be, but it's a good perspective. This would have been a 528 hertz frequency. There would have been very large bells behind her that were a combination of diatometric infused gold and gold-plated, brass-based, copper-infused bells that would have been behind her and ringing across the bass sequence. And everyone in the place, because of the architecture and the way that the building itself is built in a cymatic geometry format, all of this sound would have done nothing but help heal everyone and make them feel up to euphoria to hallucination. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Okay, no, or you can get to the type of media that is given to us. Let's go into the 60s, okay? This is the establishment of a narrative around a community. The Smothers Brothers were at the time, man, these guys were like the night show specialists. When the Smothers Brothers came up, everybody knew. And their message was received much. They were a mouthpiece for much programming. So San Francisco, in the times of Tartaria, when California was an island especially, was the capital of all of the Americas. It was a beautiful showpiece of free energy, healing modalities, vibration, frequency, and prosperity. Everyone was happy. So let's talk about how we just keep besmirching the Califia Queen female energy based California, which gets the brunt of the crap, right? They have to keep it down. There's so much natural good energy in California that all of us is of a spiritual harmony. Well, let's destroy it right now. Let's do that.
Can we get a shot of this girl here? Do you mind standing up? Taking about you're playing something. I'd like to talk to stand up. Let's give her a hand. You're very, very lovely. What was that the reason I picked her out? You were playing something. What was it?
This is a juice harp. Here, I play other things too, like the comb or the spoons. Yeah.
Did you bring any of those with you?
Oh, no, man, I left my coffee.
This is very funny. Where are you from? You're dressed kind of strange.
Oh, well, this is really very natural in the Haight-Ashbury up in San Francisco. Yeah, The newspapers refer to it as flower land.
Oh, yeah?
That's kind of weird, It's just cement. It's just like L.A.
How'd you happen to make it to the show? Generally, the people from the flower movement and the hippie movement, they generally don't come to TV shows. They have other
Well, I hitchhiked down here from San Francisco, and I was just sort of hanging out, and somebody laid a ticket on me to come here. And, anything that's free, is a groove. Because, I don't have a whole lot of money myself, and TV is so weird anyway, You never really expect anything far out to happen at a TV studio. No. But it's really, it's really far out. I was just like sitting here in my seat digging you and everything, and it was really, really wild, man, the way you came down the audience, and you started to get everybody to sing and everything. It was a lot of love, and everybody was very happy and everything. It was really beautiful. I just started to blossom.
So can't have that message. Has to be detritious. Has to be this girl who obviously has no idea and is clueless. She doesn't have any money. She's all about the free love and engaging with others. So they're slamming it. This is about establishing a narrative, right? Advertising. They are advertising that San Francisco is full of freeloaders.
With no brains.
With no brains. So we got another couple of minutes. This is actually fairly entertaining. And I'm probably 1964, I would guess. Maybe 65. No, this is going to be at the end of the Vietnam War. I bet you this is November of 67.
Well, they might have had a tiny bit, but now they don't have any.
Well, listen, I got socks that old. I think. Hold on, we'll keep running.
Well, I'm glad I could be part of that blossoming.
Wow, well, you really were, man. You really turned me on.
What do you mean exactly by turning me on?
Oh, well, turn on is like if, you press a certain button and you get kind of like a high frequency response in your soul, sort of, So
she's nailing it right there. Frequency and vibration and resonance. And she's going to get completely dismantled here. Completely just like shoveled off.
That kind of thing. It's all of a sudden you really dig that wherever you're at is really where it's at.
Huh. What's that?
Oh, well, wow, wherever you go, man, that's where you're at. And wherever you're at, that's it, man. Like we're all it, man, and this is where it's at.
You mean this is it, huh?
Oh, yeah. Wow. You're really groovy, man. You're really too much. Wow. I love you.
Do you watch this show? You are kind of a different.
I heard he was married.
Thing than I am. Do you watch our show?
Say that again.
I said, last I heard, he was married.
Oh, look, this is Hollywood in the 60s. It
was a love child thing.
It is. So let's talk about the cycle here. How we get programmed. We're in the middle of the matrix discussion. So we've talked about the way that we are manipulated to buy. We've talked about the way that this has been advertising controlled. 1853 is the quickest reference I could find. That's hundreds of years ago. The other part of this cycle in rewriting history by advertising and information flow is the understanding of what this destruction looks like. So let's talk about the next level. This is I'm gonna go forward here. I'm guessing that this is about 1947 is when this is produced. Let's talk about the definition of what happened in this war where they destroyed so much of this free energy, vibration, healing, and frequency, the Tesla-based tech, and to start rewriting our history. Here it is.
What's it like in Germany?
Must be terrible.
Well, they asked for it, they got it.
Yes, but you can't let them starve.
I don't know about that. I got a son out there.
The
As
audio
far as I can
sucks.
see, it'd be a good thing if some of them did die.
Trying to get the destruction here. Look at that. The waterways are the backbone for all of the Tartarian energy tech. So you got to destroy that. Got to get that out of there. The bridges themselves are part of the structure. These things, these column sets, this is all part of the energy infrastructure. We call it common transportation, which was all free, gone, destroyed.
Place and time.
All the pieces and
Because the
parts
people,
that make the free
the
energy
links
grid
between the
function
people were smashed
gone.
too.
People destitute.
Brushwood and carried home in hand carts.
Right. It's just, hey, everything sucks. Don't get involved in a war. Look at the masses having to pay attention. This is programming.
Food is just sufficient to keep
You
Germany
want something
afloat.
important? Go to a guy in a suit. Part of the
But
government.
greatest headache is
Oh, look at the poor
education.
children. This is a
We'll never
perceptive
get
knowledge.
Nazi ideas out of
We
the
have been
heads of
stuck in
some
this
of the
a
adults.
very, very long time. A very long time. Okay, so let's talk about the other side of this real quick. If we want to talk about actually getting information out to people, there is a snippet here. So all this will be in the notes. This is Glenn Beck, who I gotta tell you, sometimes I agree with, sometimes I don't. But he's usually pretty good about this. Where's my start time here? Glenn Beck, Whitney Webb. So there's this journalist. Her name is Whitney Webb, and she is amazing. I mean, she is just fearless, and she really talks about what's happening here right now. I might have the last few minutes. It's going to be about 4 minutes. I want to list this whole thing, and let's sort of recap where we're at. Because when we get to the next stage, we're going to talk about what's happening right now with Twitter. And so there, give this a listen.
Things fine. The mob disappeared decades ago.
Right.
Nothing to. She got moved for. Was like, yeah, just leave me alone, please. I'll do whatever you want.
All right, let's.
I think she knows from her father's death who not to
Runs
double
the show.
cross and who runs the show. Yeah.
How does this involve the regular person? Why should the regular person care about this kind of corruption?
In just talking about Epstein, the financial crimes there are very significant and are just sort of a microcosm of what has basically been the looting of the American public for decades. You look at people like Catherine Austin Fitts and Mark Skidmore, who have calculated about $21 trillion of U.S. taxpayer money that's just gone missing.
Did you hear that?
Yep.
21 trillion. This is what's not in the advertising. This is what is not on the news.
From the House of Urban Development and the Department of Defense.
Right.
It's probably more than that. Where is it being?
Where'd it go?
Where'd it go?
Yeah.
Who took it?
I remember.
And it's still happening. And now we're having the standard of life in the U.S. being degraded. Inflation's increasing. The squeeze is on thanks to manufactured food and energy crises. And I think a lot of the stuff we're seeing being built for us, people are currently perhaps unwilling to accept. But when they're cold and hungry and desperate,
You're exactly right.
I think that some people will be more willing.
The cabal.
You're
took
not
it.
improving my mood much.
Well,
Did you have a comment, Linda?
I said the cabal took it.
Yes. So she is spewing like this is drinking out of the fire hose. You can't go from watching CNN to hearing this. Just hearing that $21 trillion has been stolen through housing and urban development. Do you know where that went? That went to Detroit. That went to Chicago. That went to parts of Houston. That went to the mean streets of Jacksonville, Florida. That went to all of these places where no one gets better because all the money gets stolen. That's
And
what she's talking
CNN
about.
helped.
Say again.
CNN helped.
CNN is the advertising. That was my whole build up to here. You're on target. Hey, look away. Look away. That's what it's all about. Do not pay attention to the shiny thing in the corner where we're stealing you, stealing your money, stealing your housing, stealing your services, overburdening government.
And that's why we don't have any money now. And why we in the
we
shape
don't.
we are.
We don't.
That's
They
right.
do. We got 2 more minutes to this left. It gets worse.
Oh no.
Well, it's we have to understand what we're facing in order to solve it, right? And a lot of people
deal with it. Mm-hmm. I've been ringing this bell for almost 20 years now, and saying, "Wake up, pay attention, look what's happening," and it just keeps getting more and more obvious. And at times, there are times you're just like, how do you deal with it?
Well, I'm a mother, and I just, I have to keep going. I don't know. I have to keep saying something because my kids are going to live in this world.
Right.
And there's certain things that I just find unacceptable. And I think every parent probably does at this point. So, it doesn't really matter anymore. And I think also if you're looking at this from like the energetic spiritual level, it matter, we have to keep fighting because what's the alternative and what does that mean for us even after we're gone?
Yeah.
Right.
So let me, I first ran into you and your work. I don't remember where I saw you, but you were talking about transhumanism. Mm-hmm. And this is something that.
Okay, so we're going to start talking about the next level here. That's with the term transhumanism. What do you think that means, Linda?
The transhuman.
Have you ever heard this term before?
I don't think so.
Here's the rub. Transhumanism is like transhumanism in short is a replacement of the soul of man with a computer manipulated advertisement that you can't look away from. That's my tie together here. The transhumanism, we're already halfway there. This thing people have taken from a medical standpoint, go look at the patent from 2015. It is called an operating system. It's called an operating system in the patent. It's absolutely verifiable. So the transhumanism that this brilliant young woman is about to talk about is already happening because the phone is our minute-to-minute update device. This is gonna make sense when we get to the Twitter stuff here in a few minutes.
Well, I was going to say it was a person that didn't have a soul and could care less about anybody else.
You are spot on. You're right in the middle of it. They want to remove the soul of us and replace it with their intention. You're exactly right. So I had 2 more minutes of this.
Again, I think I was talking about this in the 90s and saying
it's been going on a long time.
Long time. Mm-hmm. And saying that this is what life is going to head towards, and it's not good. And we should probably have a conversation now. We are on the verge of this. This is happening. It could
faster
happen,
than ever. Yeah.
Yeah. It could happen 20, 25, 30, 35. It's here now.
Yeah.
Explain what transhumanism is and why it is so dangerous.
Yeah, so I'll just probably start with the history of it. So there was a man named Julian Huxley. He's the brother of the famous author Aldous Huxley. He was president of the British Eugenics Society. The United Nations is created after World War II. He is put in charge of UNESCO. In writing his vision for UNESCO, Julian Huxley says about eugenics, we need to make the unthinkable thinkable again. 10 years later, he coins the term transhumanism in a book called...
Did he read his brother's work?
I'm sure, actually, that Aldous Huxley's work was influenced by the type of social milieu he inhabited, which would include his brother. And, sort of those intellectual circles where both of them grew up, right? Okay. This is the British aristocracy, and really a lot of the idea of eugenics going back to Francis Galton and, Darwinism and all of that, it seems to sort of emanate from there.
Fabian socialists and all of that.
Yes. So in a book in 1957, I believe, called New Bottles for New Wine, something like that, Julian Huxley coins the terms transhumanism and talks about how the new eugenics is going to be merging man with machine. So this is basically eugenics rebranded, and a lot of people that funded eugenics causes of the past, like the Rockefeller family, are big proponents of transhumanism today, and it's getting increasingly problematic. I would say, if you look, for example, at the new head of the FDA, who very few people have bothered to look into, Robert Califf, he's a former Google Health executive. Google Health has a joint venture with GlaxoSmithKline called Galvani Bioelectronics. I think the former head of that was Moncef Slaoui, who was in charge of Operation Warp Speed, and their focus is what they call bioelectronic medicine, which is, injectable nanotechnology that can manipulate your central nervous system. What are the implications of that? We have the person that just purchased Twitter, making a brain chip company. He's also a major contractor to the U.S. military. He has a major conflict of interest with Chinese Silicon Valley equivalents like Tencent.
He says, and I love this, he says, that's one of the reasons why I want to get off the planet. He says his work is to find a way to compete against the transhumanistic, folly. You don't believe that at all?
I don't buy it. No.
Okay.
If you look at that company, they had animal trials. Many of the monkeys that was tested and died after the brain chip was put in. If that were my company, I would reformulate everything or shut it down if it was going to kill that many animals, but it's already moved into human trials. I mean,
even though it's killing all the monkeys.
Well, it killed many monkeys. I forget the exact number, but a significant portion.
This is where it gets frightening.
Well, it's tied up with depopulation, right? You have this being sort of the new path of eugenics. And so, I don't think these people ultimately care about, how many people are left, right?
Smart and right.
Well, eugenics
is you.
I mean, people like to act like eugenics disappeared, and it hasn't. It's just rebranded. And if you look at the history, it's very clear and it's very disconcerting.
That's why everything you're seeing that is coming out of policy all over the world, all of the World Economic Forum seems so Malthusian.
Look at Canada, the medically assisted death. Originally, it was going to be for terminally ill people. Now people are pitching it to homeless people in Canada, saying, "You're too poor to live. Do you want to kill yourself?"
No.
How do we not remember what happened?
Okay, so they're going to go down the line here of what's actually happening. They're using advertising in Canada. They're calling it late term or after late abortion is the actual legislation that was passed 3 weeks ago, where if you have a 14-year-old in your house that won't move out or you don't like, you can take him to the doctor and have him exterminated.
Oh, no.
Yes, that actually happened. I watched that. I got to tell you, it hurt my heart. Okay, so I got one more here. Let's talk about this because the Twitter thing is where we're going to head into next. It's all
Let's
together.
talk about.
So this is.
Let's talk about
4 minutes long. Bear with me here, and then you tear my argument apart because I don't think I'm wrong.
Social media and the FBI, right? Like Elon Musk came out and he's been dropping. Let's talk about social media and the FBI, right? Like Elon Musk came out and he's been dropping just the receipts, the Twitter files. I think they're up to 4 or 5 different drops now. Everything from, the shadow banning to what they did to Trump and all these things. And, some of the stuff from the internal comms of the Twitter team, there was a reference in a tweet and you made a little comment on it. And it's showing FBI agents contacting Twitter to take down social posts. Now, it doesn't sound like it's criminal posts. What's the crime here? Wrong think? Like how does that happen? Is that something that's happening in the FBI where they're working and meeting with, and it looks like on the Twitter files, they're meeting on a regular basis with Twitter. Now, I wouldn't think that's because of ongoing criminal investigations. Because look, I'm okay with the feds, locals, anyone getting involved in crimes, and there's evidence on social media. That's a different story. That's
but that's really straightforward stuff. Yep.
Yeah, and it looks like that's not what's happening. Like, do you have any info on that type of thing that the feds are doing?
So I had, he's now become a friend of mine, I would say, is, I talked to Dan Bongino first. There was a reason I went there. He's a Leo. He was in 1811, same job code as me at the Secret Service as a criminal investigator. And he was a New York, police officer. And so you go to people that you can trust. And he's been bringing me back on his show. I've done Unfiltered something like 4 times now. And each time, other than my original outbreak, showing up on the scene, was talking about social media exploitation. So there's a company called BabbleX. They make a tool that scrolls across. My friends tell me it's actually not as good as it purports to be, but the FBI's got $27 million wrapped up in that contract. That's not an insubstantial amount of money. Unsubstantial maybe is the right word. So they've got 1,000 user licenses to go and scroll that. That's an analytical tool to go and find certain things. They can do broad and narrow keyword searches. I just found out there's another one that's called Zero Fox, FOX. Somebody got that one through. And Zero Fox apparently is not very good either. It sends out all these sort of like real-time updates, like, oh, there's a shooter because someone said it or whatever else. And so it's scrolling across social media platforms. There's another one that's called Data Miner. So we've got all these tools that are monitoring social media. I have a serious problem with that. Like, these are First Amendment protected.
So he just talked about a tool called Data Miner. This is, no, that's wrong. Sorry. I killed my Data Miner link because it was invasive. Data Miner is something you can put it on your, it'll be in the show notes. You can put it on your phone or whatever. It'll do 150,000 related searches in a second. And that's what they're giving us to use for free, as a matter of fact. Anything that's free, you got to watch out. They're taking your data. So this guy talks about a tool. It is a CIA tool. What we're going to get to in a minute here in the Twitter stuff is that every single social network is infected. All of our security is gone. And they told us about this in 2 different books. So we'll tie this together here.
Realms. So without the allegation or information of criminal activity, I don't want the FBI involved. But how does the FBI get involved if that happens? Well, we really need to rely on the public to report it. That's what needs to happen instead of this proactive sort of pre-crime garbage. So when you've got these guys going out there and censoring tweets, this is the fundamental change between a law enforcement agency and an intelligence agency, right? And the way that I describe it in the video that I did about mission creep is that when you have intelligence and then you've analyzed it, and so you've got a perspective on what is wrong and right. That's sort of what analysis is. Like, is this good? Is this bad? Is it positive for us? Is it positive for the country? Whatever. Then you got to measure it. Are we doing a good job of notifying it? And then moreover, is there an action that needs to be taken? Intel, like the agency works overseas, and they work domestically too, but most people don't realize that. But they work overseas in gathering information for potentially operational movements, whether it's going to be a disinformation campaign, whether it's, putting pressure on a foreign government, whether it's just giving the information to our politicians for statecraft or so on, or whether it's a connect.
So he just walked through 4 very important points. Did you hear that?
I heard that.
Well,
In other words, they're going to tell you your whole life.
Yep.
And they don't ask you about it, and they're just telling your whole life about it. And then when they come and get you, you've got nothing to say about it because they've already caught you.
Did you hear the pre-think? We're going to talk about Aldous Huxley and George Orwell here in just a second. It all ties together. It's in front of us. We got a minute of this left, 30 seconds maybe.
Kinetic strike because we're going to just go drop a drone, and drop somebody in a cave somewhere. All those things kind of lead. The intel is not.
Oh, and he just dropped in. The other thing we might do is drop a bomb on you.
Well, they're going to do that anyway.
Eventually. Well, they're coming to get you and I on the same first bus, so it's okay.
Lost you.
I'll have whiskey.
In absence of any action. The final action needs to be some sort of kinetic movement. The FBI has the same instinct, right? Like anybody else. And so they're trying to see, how do we move the needle with the knowledge that we have now? And then can we measure it? And, and so there's that nerdy instinct to try to like categorize it and justify the funding and all that other kind of BS. But there's also like an ideological bent that goes with these people. So when they're censoring tweets or they're flagging tweets, like what in the hell who told you could do that?
Who told you could do that?
The FBI.
Well, how about nobody?
Get you?
Well, we told them when we let those people stay in office.
That's right.
Okay, so there's a couple of books here where, because the bad guys always have to tell us what they're doing, right? So they gave us two options about this. There's a guy named Aldous Huxley. Do you remember Aldous Huxley?
No.
Aldous Huxley printed a book in 1932 called Brave New World. And it's a dystopian novel about an English author, or by an English author, who talks about a futuristic world state whose citizens are environmentally engineered into an intelligence-based social hierarchy. That I just described today?
Yeah.
An environmentally engineered, intelligence-based social hierarchy.
But this has been going on for hundreds of years.
1640 is the current plan that they're trying to make happen right now. It was supposed to coincide with the
I
transitional
remember
age.
you told me you was there.
Pisces to Aquarius. It was right after I was born. I was young. I don't really remember that much. So Huxley followed the book with a reassessment and an essay form. And so there's it said, well, I'll get there in a second. Huxley does decide where the society accepts it. That's cell phones. We're going to get there. It's Twitter. They accept it. They walk into it. That is Huxley's entire narrative.
But they're never told the complete truth.
Exactly. It's uninformed consent. Now, the other side of this is a book called 1984 by a guy named George Orwell.
No,
Orwell, and for 1949, he publishes this book. Secker and Warburg, Orwell's ninth and final book, completed in his lifetime. It centers on the consequences of totalitarianism, mass surveillance, and repressive regimentation of people and behaviors within a society. Did we just get finished spending 50 minutes talking about advertising?
Yes.
And advertising is the repressive regimentation of people and behaviors within society.
Yes.
Okay. Stay with me here.
I'm here.
Oh, data miner, I did that. Okay. So I had another couple of videos here, but they get exhaustive. I want to, we had a 45-minute target for an hour target. We got about 10 minutes left. So here's my thesis. I want you to knock me off this fence because people have to do their own research. They got to wake up. We've got movie theaters in the 60s and up until the 60s where they're bringing those long ads in, right? Like that beautiful 1938 automobile. I love that car. We're talking about something that you can hit anything with. Oh my gosh. So, that's advertising. And I've actually driven that car. I think, yes, that's a beautiful machine. So the movie theaters come in later. And then we get into the 60s, the growth of Hollywood and the beginning of the true corruption of California. In the 60s and the 80s, we get the television. In the 80s, we get a wire into our house. And then in the 90s, we get computers, and that's more information. And then we get cell phones in our hand currently. What's happening right now? Set, game, match, game over. They have everything about us. Everything about us. So
even what we eat.
Yes. So how do we get out of this?
That's what those little cards that when you go to the grocery store, you got your little card. They know exactly what you eat because it's on that card.
Oh, it's worse than that. There's RFID badges in all of the food. That's the way they manage the inventory. So when you walk out of the store, they know everything you're eating. There's a spray. There's a spray.
Much.
There's a spray that was in I don't eat very much at all. Well, that hasn't been true. My friend and I have been going out and eating a lot. She's been getting me out of the house. Well, I did spend a week in Steamboat Springs eating very well. But anyway, so they have a spray that was developed in the 90s and was available for use since 2002 in the open market. And you spray it on your produce. It's a nanotechnology and it's an RFID reflector, meaning it needs no energy. And you spray it and you can't get it off. So they spray it on fruit and vegetables and they know exactly where all of that goes. So even if you don't think there's a tag on it, there's a tag on it. They're tracking us everywhere. So, getting through the dissonance, whether it's the emotional dissonance I got a definition here of emotional distance. It's a feeling of unease that occurs when someone evaluates an emotional experience as a threat to his or her identity. This is the last piece. People are living two lives. They're living a life that's on their Instagram feed, and they're living a life alone by themselves, separated by 6 feet, sequestered and put away. And I say that even in that dark hole, that Christ is in the bottom, and He's here to help us through this process. That's how you get through your dissonance. Is that you get back to the center of yourself and the true meaning of us, that Christ-sized hole in the middle of your heart that you got to fill with only Him.
And if people don't start opening their eyes to Christ and seeing what He's got to say to them, they're going to be in bad shape and not even be around.
And I don't think it's a long time until that point happens.
Just over the hill and right over yonder.
I know not the time of day. So you just got through the holidays. How many people did you piss off trying to tell them something that they didn't think was true that was right?
I told a lot of people things that they didn't think it was right until I proved it to them.
Well, I'm sure you did.
And then when I proved it to them, their mouth flew open. So anything I say, I never say anything until I can back it up with proof.
Well, it's one of the reasons I like you.
What'd you say?
No. Wait, damn it. This is being recorded.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, sister. You know that.
Yeah, right.
So how do you approach someone without jeopardizing their identity and lead them to a place where maybe they have an open heart or an open mind, or even start thinking critically? Critical thinking is like an enactment of battling emotional dissonance, right?
You always start and be nice to a person. Even if they're not nice to you, you say hello and how are you? And then most of the time...
Are you supposed to smile when you do that?
Oh, you always supposed to smile, although you're a Scrooge. You never smile.
Hey, I'm tall with a funny hat. People think I'm Scrooge all the time.
Exactly. But you're supposed to, it uses less muscles to smile than it does to frown.
It does. By almost half.
And then you just, if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be smiling today. So I just give Him all the blessing for that.
So what I just heard you say is, when it's hard to smile, you smile about Christ. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Say that a different way.
When it's hard to smile, you think about Christ, and He'll open your eyes and make you smile, and you want to thank Him for everything He does for you. No matter what your day has been, you got up this morning.
Well, we had a 1 hour top line goal here, so I will. Would you close us in prayer, Linda? Would you do that for us, please?
I would. Heavenly Father, I come to you tonight and thank you for letting us be here tonight, just to say that we want everyone to turn to you and listen to you, and listen to these advertisements where every time someone has an advertisement, they're after your money, and they'll just keep on and after you, and they'll just take it all away from you. And it's not through Christ they do this. They do it for greed. And Lord, I ask you to take these people that do it for greed and take their business away from them and put somebody in there that does it for you and does it for the people and gives back to the people. Because everything needs to belong to everyone and share. Lord, that's what you've always told us to do, is be here for each other. But you know, Lord, there's so many dishonest people in this world now. Lord, we're asking you to change this whole world around. Instead of them take from all of us, for all of us to give and be kind to each other. And all this I pray, Jesus, with love.
So it shall be. So it shall be. Father, I just pray that that the oneness of this Aquarian age is an overwhelming force, and that we would come together in ways we haven't. Family separated would be once again anew. You do all your miracles to edify you and not us. So let us be of tight mouth and open spirit. Thank you for my sister Linda. I appreciate her time. In Christ's name.
Amen and amen.
Amen. Well, I with that, I will say goodnight, Gracie, and in our cast. And Linda, I hope you come back and do this again.
I'll think about it.
I appreciate you, sis.
Okay. I hope you're going to edit that.